before we do anything else, let's just have a look at one of the two biggest differences between these two watches. And that is, of course, the size. So let me just get the Mako II off the cushion here. And what we have here in diameter is a watch approximately 41.5 millimeters. You get including the crown 43. The lug width is 22. And it's quite hard to measure this way, but 21.5, but it's actually closer to 22. The thickness is 12.2, and from lug to lug we get 46.3. And with the Mako XL, we of course get some completely different dimensions. So if we measure the case size, you get without the crown 44.1, including the crown, you get 46.2, a big 46.2. The thickness is 12.7 from lug to lug, a staggering 50.9, almost 51 millimeters from lug to lug, and the lug width is completely the same, close to 22 as the Mako II. So that's actually the first thing that springs into your eyes, is of course the size difference, as you can see it here. And I would say if you're into bigger dive watches, if you really like the big, masculine, very present dive watches, then the XL is your choice. If you're into different color variations, this Mako II comes in an all black version and an all blue version. If you're interested in, you like the different color variations much more than the quite typical blue and black color variation you see with a lot of dive watches, well then there's no difference. Of course, then you will have to go with the Mako XL. So let me just put the watches on my wrist to show you the difference in size. And I'm of course taking off my SKX. Let's put this one away. Okay, so starting with the Orient Mako XL. I have an 18 centimeter, 7.1 inch wrist. And I think I can pull it off. I can pull it off, but it is a very, very big watch. So this is for you guys who are really into big watches. If we look at the Mako II, as you can see, what we have here is a watch with a much more regular kind of wrist presence. This goes much more with as both kind of a formal watch and an everyday watch. This is of course smaller, and it just, for my wrist size, it wears a lot better. Okay, so if we get into the specifications with these watches, if we look at the bracelet, it's completely the same bracelet. And for the price you pay for these watches, you actually get quite a nice bracelet. This is actually, compared to what you are getting with the SKX flimsy Jubilee bracelet, this is actually very, very nice. It's definitely not an oyster bracelet, and you will if you ever experienced one of the better bracelets of a higher end watch, this can of course not compete with those bracelets. With both watches you get this fold over click clasp, and you also get the fold over here. So it's completely the same system with both, and I think it works. It's quite old-fashioned with these kind of clasps today, but still I think it works. It's an okay way to do it. And with both you get the, see, I banged it up a little bit here. You get the signed buckle. With the Orient Mako II, Orient actually did some more regarding details, and maybe you can just sense it here, that the crown is signed. It's not signed with the XL, it's just plain. With the case backside, it's almost the same, so no big difference there. If we look at the bezel action, I would actually prefer the Mako XL. It is kind of a tough bezel to turn, which is, if you have any experience with the Mako XL or the Mako line in general from Orient, their bezels are a lot harder to turn than, for example, the Seiko SKX, sorry. So I like the sound of the Orient Mako II bezel a lot more than I like the sound of the XL, but I like the feel of the XL a lot better than I do with the Mako II. So another very big difference is of course the movements in these two watches. If we look at the movement for the Orient Mako II, this is the updated, very new in-house Orient caliber F6922. So this comes with both hacking and manual wind, and this is a huge improvement. This is a lot better than the Mako XL movement and a lot better than the Seiko SKX. So what we get here is of course a movement where you are actually able to manually wind the watch, which is a big thing for a watch today, because if you own several watches, you don't wear them for some days and then they just stop moving, and then you have to shake it. And also with the hacking movement, hacking function, you're able to set the time completely precisely, down to 1 second. That's not a possibility, and if you just, like we saw before, if we compare these two watches, you actually get one crown doing all the action, the date, and setting the time with the Mako II, and with this one you actually need two crowns. With this Orient Mako XL we get a very an older movement. This movement is definitely not as new as the other Orient. This movement is also an in-house movement. It's called the 46943. And the big difference is that this is not hackable and it's not manual windable. Also, the big difference is that you can't control the whole watch from the crown, so you need a push button. So what you actually are able to control with the regular, the big crown here, is setting the time. If you want to set the, as you can see here, set the date, you have to push this button. Now, I know a lot of you guys find this kind of charming, and it is kind of a unique thing to Orient watches. But to me, it's completely outdated. I can live with it, but I don't think it's very nice today in 2016 that you're not able to actually do everything with one crown in a quite simple watch as this, which is only showing the time, the day and the date. Also, the big difference is of course that you're not able to manually wind this watch. What I have also experienced is that I actually think that if you look at the two watches, I think this watch just moves. If you look at this at second hand, just got the feeling it moves a little smoother than on the Orient Mako XL. Also, my experience is that the power reserve in the Mako II is quite a lot better than in the Mako XL. If we look at the Loom, it's quite the same. Actually, I would prefer the Loom with the Mako XL, and that's because the luminous material just has more space because it's a bigger dial, so it's actually easier. But the big difference is, of course, also you got the Loom pip at 12 o'clock on the Mako II and not on the XL. It's a completely plain bezel insert with no luminous material whatsoever. The feel of the watches are quite the same, but the funny thing is that they're almost weighing the same. So you get the feeling that the movement inside this watch is just better built with more quality material than the old movement in this watch. So for me, it's actually just a question of what you like, and regarding the size, you get completely the same mineral crystal glass, so there's no difference there. And what you think of the movement? It's perfectly easy to live with this movement. But today in 2016, I have other expectations than what you get with the Mako XL. So that was all for me with the comparison of these two watches. If you're looking into the watches, some of you guys, you just prefer your big masculine watches, and maybe you have some other preferences regarding dial and bezel insert color, and that you will definitely get with the Mako XL. I would also say that the Mako XL is a watch you need to move in quite fast if you find one, because it looks like it's gone completely out of production. It's sold out many places. So I hope you enjoyed this comparison. So maybe you are able to make a better choice if you're looking into which of these two Mako or Orient Mako watches you want. Please remember to subscribe, leave me a comment, follow me on Instagram and Facebook, give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.